Hi everybody, we are back. Today I wanted to do something a little bit different, and I have made some notes so that I don't forget anything. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about watercolors because that is what I am focusing on this year, trying to improve my skills. I want to get a little bit better at it. I think I'm pretty well versed in how to do watercolors. Just need more practice because it's, like I said earlier, not my very best medium. I probably lean more towards the oils or acrylic paints. I think my favorite medium is gouache, and if you haven't heard of gouache, gouache is like watercolor but more opaque, meaning it's less transparent, less see-through, and I really like gouache. It's a lot like acrylic. But this year I am focusing on the watercolors, and I wanted to just help y'all get started. I know I have some people joining the challenge who are brand new to art, and that excites me. So I want to kind of help get you started. So let's talk a little bit about watercolors. So why do I like watercolors? Well, several reasons. They're fairly inexpensive. I love the light, airy feel that watercolor paintings give you. Things look fragile and delicate when you paint it with watercolor. I like that. You get quick results. It dries very fast, and I like quick results. And it's easily portable. You can take it, pack it in your purse, pack it in a little overnight bag, and you've got it handy if you want to do a quick sketch in watercolor. So very portable. Those are some of the reasons that I love watercolors. And I could show you all kinds of examples in here, but I didn't pull them down. So let's just talk a little bit about the types of watercolors and the supplies that you'll need. So, like I said, it can be fairly inexpensive. So basically, you're going to first need some paint, right? You need some watercolor paint. I'm just going to show you a few different types of palettes. This one right here, I think that I swatched this one once. This is pretty low quality here. You could get started with this. I would not recommend it. Trying to remember where this came from. It may have came from Amazon. It may have came from Walmart. I'm not sure. These are very chalky. You can use them, get color from them, but they don't have a ton of pigment and they dry really chalky. But if you're just wanting to practice and get started, this, I think, was around $5. You may could find something like this at the Dollar Tree. Actually, that may be where this came from, but it does have a ton of colors here. So if you're just wanting to get started and see how it feels, of course, you could get this. It does come with a couple of brushes. These are no good. Do not use these. These could just be thrown in the trash. All right, so there's that. They come in... I like to use a palette. Palettes come in all different sizes. This is a little tiny watercolor palette. This is some pretty good paint here. It's Derwent, and it came in a kit that I ordered. I do a lot of subscriptions, so I think this came in a little subscription. This has all your basic colors in it. I've got different watercolor palettes. This one's okay, Art Philosophy. It's probably a medium level as far as how good it is. Getting kind of sticky there, so you can see they're not the greatest quality, but they do have a lot of pigment in them. This is called a water brush, and talk about the brushes here in a minute. But this one has a lot of good basic colors and some extras in there. I've used it quite a bit. I have this as my tried and true favorite. Now, this watercolor tin I bought off of Amazon, but these are the watercolors. They are Jane Davenport, and she's an Australian artist that makes her own line. You can tell these have been used a lot. And these are some of the most pigmented and beautiful colors that I have. And, of course, got a little Van Gogh case for them to go in. This one has some specialty. This is Prima Terrain. It has some really pretty greens and some other really pretty colors there. You can get these sort of like specialty palettes And these are pretty good. They do dry a little bit more on the chalkier side, but I like them a lot. They remind me of gouache a bit. They're a little bit less transparent than, you know, others. What else do we have here? I've got, oh, okay, so they can also come in tubes. This is Daniel Smith, probably some of the more expensive ones that you can get, but they come in little tubes like this. And you don't need much of it, so you know the expense, it'll last you a really long time. This one I have put into this palette. It came with the palette, and I've swatched all the colors there, but you can see the sides here that fold over, they're meant to be used as a palette. Sometimes I use it there, or I will get me a little cheap palette like this or a plate to use, because watercolors, they'll rinse away and clean up real easily. That's another benefit of watercolor. It cleans up real easily. So this is a more expensive paint on the higher end. I would say this palette was probably around $100. But you do not have to spend that to get started. You can get a much cheaper palette, you know, like I said, from $5, $10, $20, and get started and do just fine. This is another type. It's a shimmery watercolor. I don't use these a ton, but it's nice if you're going to paint something like maybe a Christmas ornament or some, you know, put some silver on something. This is a good one. It's got all the little golds and the glazes and things like that. These can go over top of other colors too to give them a shimmer. And those are really nice. Here's another little one that came in a subscription from Grabby. Grabby's a little pricey, maybe about $50 a month, but I don't subscribe now. But this did come in the Grabby, and these are some pretty good paints here. They're very pigmented, and I like the size of this palette for portability. And then, last but not least, I do have some watercolors that I made myself. These are about a year old, so they're getting a little bit sticky now, but they will, as soon as I squirt them with water, they'll, you know, be right back to usable and make some absolutely, they made some absolutely beautiful colors. I did get this in a subscription box as well and made my own. So those are some of the watercolors that I like to use. If I were you and you're just getting started, I'd head out to Walmart, pick me up a little watercolor set, and grab me some brushes, and we could get started. So what else do we need to watercolor? We're gonna need brushes, right? So, for the brushes, I pulled out some brushes here to talk about with you. Do you have to have all these brushes to get started? No, you don't, but these are the basic watercolor brushes. Like I said, this is a water brush, and you are able to open this if you turn it. I always get this wrong. Normally you would open it the other way, but with these you go to the right and you fill it up with water. Best to use distilled water when you're working with watercolors for water brushes and for spraying your palettes, just so no mold or anything grows. I can never turn that right. But anyway, this is a little water brush, very portable. You can take it with you and, you know, squeeze some water down in the brush and paint that way. Now, there's all these different type of brushes. I just pulled a few. This one here, most watercolor brushes are pretty soft. There's different types of brushes made out of, you know, from animal hair, which are considered the higher quality ones, and synthetic hair, which is less quality, or a blend. This one is called a mop. This soaks up a lot of water. It's good for wetting whole pages down if you want to do a wet on wet technique. We'll talk about techniques and things like that a little bit later, but this is a mop brush. This one right here is called a filbert. This is a large filbert. This is another of Jane Davenport's brushes. The pink and the blue ones are. That's a filbert. It's a big one. I just pulled out the bigger ones so you could see them a little bit better. This one is another filbert, a little bit smaller. Here we have an angled brush. These are good for painting leaves and, you know, different things like that. Angled brush. Then we have got, oh, I don't think I pulled out a fan brush. I'll have to pull out a fan brush if I can find one. Do I have a fan brush? Yeah, I never use a fan brush. Here's one. They could be good for like painting certain things, but that's a fan brush. Mine looks a little rough. What else do we got? Then we've got what a lot of people like to use. This is a round brush. It's kind of round and pointed at the tip. Here's a couple of different ones of those. This one is a square brush. Yep, just a flat, or it's sometimes called a flat brush. And then this one with the long, thin, this one's getting kind of in rough shape. When they start spreading out like that, it's probably getting a little bit old. This is also Jane Davenport. This is a liner brush for making little thin, thin wispy things. And see, when I get it wet, I can twist it up to make a little small line of paint. So that's some of the brushes. If I were you, I would get started with just like a round brush, or just get you a little set of brushes. Synthetic will be cheaper. Just try to get ones that say they're for watercolor, and they'll probably give you a good set. Other things that you will need, of course, you're going to need water, right? I got this spray bottle. I think this is actually for plant mixing. Yep. But I'm using it to watercolor. I have distilled water in here. This is what I use to spray onto my palette to wet the water down and let it sit for a few minutes to activate the paint. I like to have 2 additional jars of water. This one for dirty water, the bigger one, to rinse my brushes, and this one to pick up clean water. Because sometimes you want to switch colors, and if you dip it back into the dirty water, you're going to pick up some of the paint and make it kind of muddy looking. So you want to have lots of water. Another thing you're going to want is paper towels. Where's my paper towels? You definitely want to have paper towels. Something that I'm working on is getting used to controlling my amount of water that I'm using. We can talk about that in another video, but you definitely want to have some paper towels nearby. Oh, and I forgot to tell you about this little tiny detail brush too. That's great for when you're painting tiny like we're doing in this challenge. But you definitely want to be able to, you know, dry the water off your brush if it's too wet. You also want to have extra paper to kind of test your strokes with, to see, you know, what they're looking like before you actually go into your picture. So that's pretty much all the supplies that you need to get started. Some of the extra things you're probably going to want. Good lighting. Definitely good lighting. You can't watercolor in the dark. You're not going to be able to see what you're doing, especially as we get older, right? You're going to want to have a good pencil so you can kind of sketch very lightly your drawing. You want to have an eraser. This is probably not the best one, but it is a dust-free eraser. But the more you erase on paper, we didn't talk about paper. I got to go back and talk about paper. The more you erase on paper, you can actually rub away some of the paper, and it can make your watercolors look funny. So you want to be careful when you're erasing. Just very lightly erase. Let's talk about paper. Yes, so paper. You want to get either watercolor paper or mixed media paper. So I pulled out a few that I have. Some inexpensive up to more expensive. This one is an inexpensive Artist Loft pad. Looks like I was doing some swatching in here. That looks like gouache, but this is a it's cold pressed, heavyweight paper. 140 pounds is typically what you're going to look for. This is a smooth paper, but it does have some tooth to it. Tooth meaning it has a little bit of texture. So that's an inexpensive one. This pad was probably $5. This is a toned mixed media, so that meaning that you can use watercolors or any other medium on it. It's thicker and it's colored. This is a tan. You know, sometimes you want a tan background. This is another Artist Loft, a little bit bigger. And one thing you can do if you get a big pad like this is you can actually cut it down into smaller pieces to practice on, so it saves your money too. So you're not using one sheet for a small little painting. So you could cut that down. Fabriano is a really nice watercolor. This one is actually hot pressed, meaning it is a lot smoother. But this is a thick, nice paper. And that's really personal preference, whether you want hot press or cold press. Cold press has more of the tooth or the texture to it. Hot press is real smooth. And that's just the pressing and how they how they make the paper, whether it's with hot or cold, I guess. This one's actually made in Italy, 140 pounds. This is a nice paper. I like it a lot. And then the Mac Daddy, the big one. This one comes in a block. This is Arches, cold pressed. This pad, I want to say it was in the neighborhood of 50 bucks. So this is if you're getting into serious watercolor. This is some thick cotton paper. Comes in a block. You paint on it on the block like it is, and then you peel it off when you're done and it's dried. But I usually typically cut this down because I never paint watercolors this large. So it's been an investment, but definitely I've had it a long time. All right, that's paper. So like I said, go to Walmart, find you some watercolor paper. I'm telling you, your investment's going to be probably less than $20 to get started. Other things that you're going to want. We talked about pencil, paper. You may want some fine liners. Now, fine liners are liners that will not activate with water, because if you get water on this ink, it is going to, see it says waterproof there. If you use a pen that's not waterproof, it can, if it gets wet, it can bleed into your painting. But a lot of people like to use fine liners over top of their watercolors, and you can see in this first watercolor painting that I did, I used fine liners over those mushrooms there just to give them more interest. You don't have to use those, but that's some extras you might want. I use these clips to hold my notebook that I'm working in. This journal, me and Mom, we actually made some journals for watercolor painting for this challenge. But washi tape, that's another thing you're probably going to want if you want to tape off a section so that it doesn't bleed under. You can also use cheap painter's tape. I've got a ton of washi tape, so that's usually what I use. You have to be careful with these. Sometimes when you go to pull them off, it will rip the paper. So I like to stick it to my clothes or something just before I stick it on the paper, just to kind of take some of that sticky off. But yeah, you want some washi tape or some painter's tape. And what else? You probably want, as you get into it, some, I like to use either white gouache, or this is actually a white ink, just to put some of the white back in. Now, you know, true watercolor artists will probably say, nah, don't do that. You need to leave your space blank for the white, but I'm not that good. So if I want to add white back in, I'm going to use either white gouache or white ink. So I think that's it. How do you get started? You just go buy your stuff and you sit down and tell people not to bother you. Put on some good music. Get you a glass of wine if that's what you'd like to do. And get started. That's all there is to it. I'm getting ready to paint another painting here for the 100 Tiny Painting Challenge, but I'm going to do that in a separate video because I feel like I've been talking a lot and this might be getting kind of long. But yeah, go get you some stuff and get started and join our challenge on Facebook, or just look for, what is it called? The 100. My challenge on Facebook is Mammy's 100 Tiny Paintings Challenge, because Mammy is my nickname. Me and my husband, Mammy and Pappy, that's who we've been for years. Yeah, so my challenge is to paint 100 this year. I'm up to 4, got a long way to go, but hey, we got 11 months left. So yeah, if you haven't joined on Facebook, go look for that and join us. I'd love to have you. If you like this video, please give me a like and hit subscribe. And I look forward to painting with you. If you have any questions, if I didn't cover something you have a question about, please leave it in the comments. I would love to hear your ideas. You know, the next time maybe we'll talk about techniques of watercolor. But yeah, check out other YouTube videos. There's lots and lots and lots of people who teach watercolor on YouTube. So super way to learn it, and learn it quick and learn it good. Whether you're an artist or not, everybody can do this. All right, you guys, love you. Bye.